The farmer's market was loud, colourful, and alive. Emily moved through the crowd with the quiet grace of a woman who had learned to carry peace like a second skin. One hand held her purse, the other held Everest. He was 7. Curious about everything. The kind of boy who asked 3 questions before you finished answering the first one. They were just here for tomatoes. A simple Saturday. Nothing more. That was what Emily thought. Everest spotted the flower stall first and yanked her toward it without warning. She laughed. He didn't notice. He was already crouching near a row of sunflowers when he slowly stood back up and went completely still. Emily noticed the stillness before anything else, because Everest was never still. "Mommy." His voice was different, low, careful. His arm rose slowly, one finger pointing across the cobblestone path with the kind of certainty only children have when they know they are seeing something real and unexplainable at the same time. Emily followed his finger. A little girl stood at the opposite flower stall. Small, quiet, holding a wicker basket of wild flowers against her chest. Dark curly hair, wide, intense eyes, staring back at Everest with the same frozen, open-mouthed expression he was wearing. 2 strangers, looking at each other like they had just seen a mirror. Emily's smile faded before she understood why. The shape of the eyes, the curve of the jaw, the exact way the lips parted in surprise. It was the same face. "Mommy," Everest whispered. "Why does she have my face?" Something cold moved through Emily's chest, slow, quiet, and very precise. Like a key turning in a lock she didn't know existed. She had no answer for her son. For the first time in 7 years of motherhood, Emily had absolutely nothing to say. If you've ever felt the ground shift beneath you without warning, this story is about to show you just how deep that ground can crack. Stay with us, because what Emily is about to discover will change everything she thought she knew about the man she married. And if you're new here, subscribe to AfroKorean Saga, stories that cross oceans, cultures, and secrets. Emily didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there on the cobblestone path with the market noise buzzing around her like static, her eyes locked on the little girl across the way. The girl hadn't moved either. There was something unsettling about how calm she was. Most children her age would have looked away by now, distracted by something shiny or edible nearby. But this one just stood there, basket pressed to her chest, dark eyes steady, watching Everest the way you watch something you've been looking for without knowing it. Then a woman appeared behind her. She stepped out from between 2 flower displays, one hand reaching down to rest on the little girl's shoulder. She was Korean, slender, pretty in a sharp, deliberate way. The kind of woman who was always aware of how she looked and made sure others were too. She wore a fitted cream blouse and dark trousers, her hair pulled back, smooth and clean. She looked like someone who had somewhere important to be, even on a Saturday morning at a farmer's market. Her eyes found Emily's almost immediately, and something passed between them, fast and wordless, and deeply uncomfortable. Not recognition exactly. More like the specific tension of 2 people who exist in the same story without having been introduced yet. The woman's jaw tightened, barely. Her hand on the little girl's shoulder squeezed once. "Mia." Her voice was soft but firm. "Let's go." Mia didn't argue. She dropped her eyes from Everest, turned quietly, and followed her mother between the stalls until the crowd swallowed them both whole. Gone. Just like that. Everest turned to look up at Emily. His brow was furrowed, that sideways tilt of his head firmly in place. "Mommy, did you see her?" "Yes, baby." Emily's voice came out steadier than she felt. "I saw her. She looked like me." Emily looked down at her son, at his dark, curly hair, his wide brown eyes, the curve of his jaw that everyone always said came from his father. His father. Kai. The name moved through her mind slowly, like a stone dropping into still water. Come on. She took Everest's hand and turned away from the flower stall. Let's go home. She forgot about the tomatoes entirely. Emily drove home in silence. Everest had fallen asleep in the back seat within minutes, the way children do. Completely, without warning, as if the world simply switched off for them. She envied that. The ability to just stop. To close your eyes and let everything go quiet. Her mind wouldn't stop. She kept seeing it. The little girl's face, the curve of the jaw, the exact shape of the eyes. The way Mia had stood there so still, so steady, holding that basket of wildflowers like she had been waiting for something without knowing what it was. She looked like Everest. Not vaguely. Not in the way strangers sometimes share a feature, and you think nothing of it. This was specific. Genetic. The kind of resemblance that doesn't happen by accident. Emily's hands tightened on the steering wheel. She thought about the woman. The one who had appeared behind Mia and pulled her away. Korean. Sharp. Deliberate. The way her eyes had found Emily's so quickly. Not with curiosity. Not with the casual glance of a stranger. With something else entirely. Something that already knew. Who was she? The house was quiet when they got home. Kai wasn't back yet. Saturday afternoons he played golf with his business partner. Or so he always said. Emily had never questioned it. She had never had a reason to. She settled Everest on the couch with a blanket and stood there a moment watching him sleep. His lashes against his cheeks, his small chest rising and falling. 7 years she had poured into this child. 7 years of midnight fevers and school runs and scraped knees and bedtime stories. 7 years of building a life she was proud of. She turned away and walked to the bedroom. She wasn't sure what she was looking for. She told herself she was just tidying, just moving through the room the way she did every Saturday. Opening the wardrobe, straightening things, keeping her hands busy so her mind would slow down. It didn't slow down. She found herself at the shelf above Kai's side of the wardrobe, the one that held old things, a watch he no longer wore, a folded document from his first business registration, and a small wooden box she had seen 100 times and never once opened because she trusted him, and trust meant not needing to look. She opened it. Inside was what she expected: cufflinks, a spare key, some loose change from a trip abroad. And beneath all of it, a photograph. She almost missed it. She almost put the box back. But something made her fingers move the cufflinks aside. Something quiet and insistent that lived below, thought and above instinct. The thing that mothers develop, not from suspicion but from love. The radar that switches on when something in your world is not what it appears to be. She picked up the photograph. It was old, printed, not digital, the kind people made before everything lived in phones. Kai was younger in it, maybe late 20s. He was laughing at something off camera, relaxed and unguarded in a way she rarely saw him now. And beside him, pressed close, her head tilted toward his shoulder, Emily's breath left her body. It was the woman from the market. Younger, softer around the edges, but unmistakably her. The same sharp prettiness. The same deliberate posture, even in a casual photograph. Her hand was resting on Kai's chest with the easy familiarity of someone who had done it 1,000 times. Someone who belonged there. Or had believed she did. Emily turned the photograph over with steady hands. On the back, in small, neat handwriting, Nari and Kai. Always, always. She set the photograph down on the shelf very carefully, the way you set down something fragile that has already broken. Her heart was hammering, but her face was completely calm. That frightened her more than anything. How calm she felt. Like her body already knew what her mind was still catching up to. Like some part of her had been waiting for this moment for longer than she realized. She thought about Mia's face, Everest's face, the same jaw, the same eyes. She thought about the dates, their wedding. How long ago? How old Mia looked. 6, maybe 7, same as Everest. Have you ever found something you weren't looking for, and realized in that moment that everything you thought was solid was actually built on air? Emily picked up her phone. She didn't call Kai. Not yet. She opened her photo gallery and found a picture of Everest from last Christmas, laughing, head thrown back, eyes scrunched shut with complete, uncomplicated joy. She held it beside the photograph from the box. She looked between them for a very long time. Then she heard the front door open downstairs. Kai's voice floated up, warm and easy, the voice of a man returning from a pleasant afternoon with nothing on his conscience. "Baby, I'm home." Emily placed the photograph back beneath the cufflinks, placed the box back on the shelf, closed the wardrobe door without a sound, smoothed her dress with both hands, and walked to the top of the stairs with a smile on her face that didn't reach her eyes. "Up here," she called back softly. "Welcome home. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that button, because Emily hasn't cried, hasn't screamed, hasn't confronted anyone. And that silence, that's the most dangerous thing in this story so far." Kai was in a good mood. That was the first thing Emily noticed as he climbed the stairs. His tie was loosened, his jacket thrown over one arm, the easy smile of a man who had spent a pleasant afternoon doing exactly what he said he was doing. Golf. Fresh air. No complications. He kissed her cheek. She let him. "How was the market?" he asked, moving past her into the bedroom, already unbuttoning his shirt. "Good." Her voice was smooth, even. Everest fell asleep on the couch. That boy. Kai laughed softly, shaking his head. "Did you get the tomatoes?" Emily paused for just a fraction of a second, so small he would never catch it. "I forgot." "No worries." He disappeared into the bathroom. "I'll grab some tomorrow." She stood in the doorway of the bedroom, listening to the sound of the tap running. The ordinary domestic sound of a husband washing his hands after a day out. A sound she had heard 1,000 times. A sound that had always meant safety. She looked at the wardrobe. Then she walked downstairs to check on Everest. Dinner that evening was quiet in the way their dinners sometimes were. Not uncomfortable, just settled. The kind of quiet that belongs to people who have been together long enough that silence doesn't need to be filled. Kai talked about his golf game. Everest woke up halfway through the meal and ate with one eye still closed. Emily smiled at the right moments, asked the right questions. She watched Kai's face the entire time. She was looking for something she couldn't name yet. A flicker, a tell, some small evidence of a man carrying a secret the size of what she suspected. But Kai was relaxed, present. He cut Everest's chicken into smaller pieces without being asked, the way he always did, and listened with genuine attention when Everest told him about the sunflowers at the market. "There was a girl there," Everest said suddenly, his fork pausing mid-air. Emily's hand stilled around her glass. "Oh yeah?" Kai said, reaching for the pepper. "What kind of girl?" "She looked like me." Everest said it simply, the way children state facts. No drama, no weight, just the plain truth as he understood it. Exactly like me. Mommy saw her too." The pepper grinder stopped. It was less than a second. Barely a pause. The kind of thing you would miss entirely if you were not already watching. But Emily was watching. She had been watching since he walked through the door. Kai set the pepper grinder down and looked up. First at Everest, then at Emily. His expression was curious, mild, perfectly composed. "Is that right?" he said. Mm-hmm. Everest had already moved on, chasing a piece of carrot around his plate. She had a basket with flowers. Kai looked at Emily. She looked back at him, and she smiled, warm, unbothered, giving him absolutely nothing. Kids, she said lightly, always finding twins everywhere. Kai smiled back, reached for his water glass, but his hand, Emily noticed, was not entirely steady. She waited until he was asleep. It didn't take long. Kai slept the way he always did, deeply, quickly, on his side, facing the window. Within 20 minutes of his head hitting the pillow, his breathing had slowed and evened out. Emily lay beside him in the dark, perfectly still, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. She counted to 500. Then she picked up her phone, slipped out of bed without a sound, and walked barefoot to the kitchen. She sat at the counter in the dark and opened her phone screen. The brightness stung her eyes for a moment. She turned it down. Then she went back to what she had started at the market, back to the name written on the back of that photograph in small, neat handwriting. Nari. She had a last name now. She had spent 20 minutes before dinner quietly, methodically going through Kai's old emails on the shared family laptop, the one they used for bills and school correspondence and grocery lists, the one he had never thought to close his old accounts on because why would he? His wife trusted him. She had found it in an email thread from 8 years ago. A name, a company, a district in the city? Nari Cha, creative director. Midtown. Emily typed the name into Instagram first. 3 profiles came up. She went through each one carefully. The second one stopped her, cold. The profile photo was small but unmistakable. That face, that posture. The account was mostly private, but the 9 visible grid photos told her enough. A woman who documented her life in careful, curated images. Restaurants, art galleries, and in one photo, half hidden behind a filter and a vague caption posted 6 years ago, a baby. A tiny girl with dark, curly hair and wide, intense eyes, photographed from above the way new mothers photograph their newborns. The caption said nothing except a single word. Mine. Emily stared at that photograph for a long time. Then she did the math she had been avoiding all evening, the calculation she had felt building since the market, since the wooden box, since she had stood at the top of the stairs and smiled at her husband like everything was fine. Kai and Emily had started dating 14 months before their wedding. The affair, if that photograph and those emails told the truth, had been happening at the same time, which meant Nari had been with Kai while Kai was with Emily. A month before the wedding, maybe more. And then, Emily looked at the baby photo again. Mia was 6, maybe just turned 7. Same window as Everest, same season, possibly the same month. Her husband had gotten 2 women pregnant at the same time. Married one, abandoned the other. And somewhere in this city, a little girl with her son's face had grown up without a father because Kai had decided his secret was more important than his child. Emily set her phone face down on the counter. She sat in the dark kitchen of the home she had built with this man, and she breathed. In, out, slowly. The way you breathe when you are deciding who you are going to be on the other side of something. She was not going to cry. Not tonight. Tonight she was going to think. 3 days passed. Emily did not confront Kai. She did not cry in the shower or slam doors or leave his calls unanswered. She went to work. She packed Everest's lunch. She kissed her husband good morning and good night, and in between she smiled the precise smile of a woman who had made a decision and was simply waiting for the right moment to execute it. She was gathering. It started small. She went back to the shared laptop every evening after Kai fell asleep and moved through his old emails the way an archaeologist moves through a dig, carefully, patiently, disturbing nothing, photographing everything. She screenshotted dates, names, conversations that were short and clipped and careful, in the way conversations are when two people are aware they are leaving a record. She found transaction records from a joint account they had merged 2 years into the marriage. Withdrawals she had never noticed before. Small enough not to alarm. Consistent enough to be intentional. Monthly, like clockwork, for almost 6 years, he had been sending Nari money. Emily sat with that discovery for a long time. Longer than she had sat with any of the others, because it complicated the picture she had been building in her head. The picture of a man who had slept with another woman, gotten her pregnant, and then walked away clean into a new life with his wife and his son and his carefully ordered world. Kai had not walked away clean. He had been paying, quietly, consistently, month after month after month, for 6 years, into an account she now had the number for, which meant he knew about Mia, had always known, had received the news of her existence at some point, a phone call, a message, a confrontation she would never have access to, and had responded not by stepping up, but by writing a check, by reducing his own daughter to a line item, something that could be managed from a distance, something that didn't have to disrupt anything. He hadn't abandoned his daughter entirely. He had just decided she was a secret worth keeping, a problem worth paying to stay quiet, a child worth funding but not fathering. Emily stared at the transaction records on her screen for a long time. That, she realized slowly, was somehow worse than abandonment. Abandonment was a decision made once. This was a decision remade every single month for 6 years. Every transfer was a choice. Every choice was a confirmation. Kai had looked at his daughter's existence every 30 days and decided all over again that his comfort mattered more than her identity, more than her right to know who her father was, more than the look on her face, that wide, steady, quietly searching look as she stood at a flower stall holding a basket of wild flowers and stared at a boy who had her father's eyes. Emily closed the laptop. She sat in the dark kitchen and breathed. On the 4th day she called her best friend. Adaze picked up on the second ring the way she always did, her voice loud and warm and full of the kind of energy that made every phone call feel like you were already in the same room together, sitting across a table with something hot to drink. Emily, talk to me. So Emily talked. She sat in her car in the parking lot of the grocery store and she laid it out from the beginning. The market, the flower stall, Everest going still, his finger pointing, his voice dropping to that careful whisper. The woman behind the girl, the eyes that found hers too fast, the drive home, the wooden box, the photograph, the name on the back, the Instagram account, the baby photo with the single word caption, the emails, the transaction records, 6 years of monthly payments to a private account. All of it, laid out quietly and precisely and without a single tremor in her voice. When she finished, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. Adaze, I'm here. Adaze's voice had shifted completely. The warmth was still there, but underneath it now was something harder, focused, the voice she used when she was thinking fast and feeling deeply at the same time. I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. He has a daughter, same age as Everest, been sending the mother money every month for 6 years, kept a photograph of them in a box in your shared bedroom, and you found all of this in 3 days without him knowing. Yes, and he has absolutely no idea that you know any of it. None whatsoever. Another silence. Longer. Then, Emily, what do you want to do? It was exactly the right question. Not how could he do this to you, or I always felt something was off about him, or you need to pack his things and put them outside. Just, what do you want to do? That was why Adaze was her person. She never decided for you. She never made your crisis about her own feelings. She just stood completely beside you, while you figured out who you were going to be. Emily looked through the windshield at the parking lot. A woman was loading groceries into the trunk of a silver car. A toddler sat in a shopping cart nearby, swinging his legs and eating something from a small packet, completely content. Ordinary Saturday afternoon life moving at its ordinary pace, entirely indifferent to the fact that Emily's had quietly and irrevocably split open 1 week ago at a flower stall. "I want to find her," Emily said. "Kai?" "No." A pause. "Nari." The silence this time was different, heavier. "Emily." "That little girl has her father's face." Her voice was still level, still precise, controlled in the way that things are controlled when the alternative is coming completely apart. "She is growing up in this city without a father because Kai decided his secret was worth more than her identity. I am angry at him. I have not even begun to process the full extent of what I am going to do about my husband. But that child is not his secret to keep anymore. Not after my son stood at a flower stall and looked at her face and asked me why she looked like him. Everest did not ask for this. Mia certainly did not ask for this. And I am not going to pretend I did not see what I saw." Adai's was quiet for a long moment. Emily could hear her breathing, could almost feel her sitting somewhere, absorbing everything, making space for all of it before she spoke again. Then she exhaled. Slow, deliberate, decided. "Okay," she said. "So we find her. How?" "Her Instagram is private, but she has a business page. Creative director, studio in Midtown." Emily had already saved the address in her notes app 3 days ago. Neat, organized, ready and waiting. "I'm going to go and see her." "When?" "Tomorrow morning." "I'm coming with you." Emily almost said no, almost said she could handle it alone, that she didn't need company, that this was her mess to walk into. But the truth was, she didn't know what she was walking into. She didn't know who Nari was beyond a photograph and a private account, and a name written in neat handwriting with the word always underneath it. She didn't know if this woman would open a door or slam one, didn't know if she was dangerous or desperate or grief-stricken or all three at once. What she knew was that a child was at the center of this, and that changed every calculation. "Okay," Emily said. "Tomorrow, 10 o'clock. I'll drive," Adaisi said. Emily sat in the parking lot a little longer after they hung up, engine idling, the grocery list on the passenger seat completely untouched. She thought about Mia one more time, the wildflowers, the wide, steady eyes, the way she had looked at Everest like she was seeing something she recognized without yet having the words for it. She thought about Nari, too, the woman in the cream blouse, the sharpness of her, the way she had looked at Emily across the cobblestone path, not with guilt, but with something older and more complicated than guilt. Something that had been living in her chest for 7 years, compressed and pressurized, waiting for exactly this, for the wife to finally look back. Emily didn't know yet whether Nari was someone she could trust, didn't know whether walking into that studio tomorrow would open a conversation or ignite a war. This woman had history with her husband that predated Emily, had a child with him, had taken money from him for 6 years in silence. But she also had a daughter who deserved a father. And that, above everything else, above Emily's anger and Kai's secrets and whatever game Nari had been playing, was the only thing that mattered right now. 2 children standing on either side of a secret that had never been theirs to carry. Emily started the engine. That was about to change. The studio was on the 4th floor of a narrow glass building, sandwiched between a dry cleaner and a coffee shop on a busy midtown street. Emily and Adaisi sat in the car across the road for a full 5 minutes before either of them moved. "You ready?" Adaisi asked. Emily looked up at the building. 4th floor, a row of windows. Behind one of them somewhere was the woman from the photograph, the woman from the market, the woman whose daughter had her son's face. "No," Emily said honestly. "Let's go anyway." They crossed the street together. The lobby was small and clean, with a single elevator and a directory board on the wall. Emily found the name immediately, Char Creative Studio. Floor 4. She pressed the elevator button and stood straight and said nothing. Adeyezi stood beside her, close enough that their arms touched. That was enough. The elevator opened on the 4th floor into a bright open space. Exposed brick, large windows, mood boards pinned across an entire wall, the quiet hum of creative work in progress. A young receptionist looked up from her desk with a practiced smile. "Good morning. Do you have an appointment?" "We don't," Emily said, "but we're here to see Nari Cha. Please tell her Emily is here." She paused for just a fraction of a second. "Tell her it's about Kai." The receptionist's smile held, but her eyes shifted slightly. She picked up her desk phone, turned half away, and spoke quietly into it. Emily watched her shoulders, watched the small pause after she said Kai's name, watched her turn back around with an expression that was carefully neutral. "She'll be right out," the receptionist said. Emily nodded. She did not sit down. Nari appeared from a glass-walled office at the far end of the studio 2 minutes later. She was dressed simply, plain dark trousers, a basic white shirt slightly creased at the sleeve, hair down today without styling. Without the market crowd around her, she looked slightly less armored, slightly more tired. The kind of tired that a carefully held posture can only conceal so much of before it starts showing at the edges. In the faint shadows beneath her eyes, in the way her shoulders carried a tension that never fully released. But her eyes were the same, sharp, already calculating the distance between them before she had crossed half of it. She stopped a few feet away. For a moment neither of them spoke. Two women standing in a bright, open studio on a Tuesday morning, looking at each other across 7 years of a secret that had quietly shaped both their lives without either of them fully consenting to it. It was Nari who broke first. "You found me," she said. Her voice was quiet, controlled in the way Emily's had been for the past 4 days, the control of someone managing something enormous from the inside. "My son found your daughter first," Emily said, "at the farmer's market last Saturday." Something moved across Nari's face, fast, gone before Emily could fully name it. But it was there, a crack in the composure, small and real and very human. "I know," Nari said quietly. "I saw." "Then you know why I'm here." Nari's eyes moved to Adeyezi briefly, then back to Emily. She straightened slightly, the way people do when they are deciding how much of themselves to give away. "Come into my office," she said. The glass-walled office was small and ordered. Mood boards on one wall, a clean desk with a chipped corner that had been there long enough nobody noticed anymore. A single framed photograph on the shelf behind it. Mia, laughing, maybe 4 years old, mid-air on a swing set, her dark curly hair flying out behind her, completely free. Emily looked at that photograph for a long moment before she sat down. Nari sat across from her. Adeyezi took the chair beside Emily and said nothing. Just present, just solid, exactly what she was needed to be. "How much do you know?" Nari asked. "Enough," Emily said. "The photograph, the payments, the dates." She held Nari's gaze steadily. "I know Mia is Kai's daughter. I know she was born the same month as my son, and I know he has been sending you money every month for 6 years. Nari's jaw tightened. "It wasn't to stay quiet." "Then what was it for?" "It was guilt money." The words came out flat, stripped of emotion the way you say something you have rehearsed so many times, It no longer has the power to wound you. He felt guilty. He always felt guilty, but not guilty enough to do the right thing. Not guilty enough to tell you. Not guilty enough to actually be her father. She stopped, looked down at her hands. Just guilty enough to write a check every month so he could sleep at night. The room was very quiet. Emily sat with that for a moment, with the specific cruelty of a man who had found a way to ease his conscience without paying the real price. "Why did you take the money?" Emily asked. Not accusatory, just direct. Nari looked up. "Because I had a daughter to raise alone, and pride doesn't buy school shoes." A beat of silence. "I need to ask you something," Emily said, "and I need you to be honest with me." Nari said nothing, waited. "Did you know about me? When it was happening? Did you know he was with me?" The silence that followed was answer enough, but Nari gave her the words anyway. "Yes," she said. "I knew he was seeing someone. I didn't know how serious it was until the engagement announcement." She paused. "By then I was already pregnant. I found out 2 weeks after I saw the announcement online. I called him. He came to see me once, told me he was sorry, told me he couldn't leave you, told me he would make sure Mia and I were taken care of financially." Her voice didn't waver, but her hands, Emily noticed, had folded tightly together on the desk. "And then he left, and he never came back." Emily held that quietly for a moment. Then she looked up. "How long were you together?" "Before me." Nari's eyes met hers. 2 years. Emily hadn't expected that. She kept her face still, but something shifted behind her eyes, a small, precise recalculation. 2 years was not a reckless night or a moment of weakness. 2 years was a relationship. A real one. Which meant Kai had not stumbled into something with Nari. He had walked into it deliberately, maintained it deliberately, and then walked away from it just as deliberately when Emily became the more convenient future. She looked at the photograph of Mia on the shelf again. Hair flying, laughing at something outside the frame. "I'm not here to fight you," Emily said. She brought her eyes back to Nari. "I'm not here to compare wounds or decide who was wronged more. I'm here because of that little girl." She nodded towards the photograph. "She deserves better than a monthly payment and a secret. She deserves to know who her father is. She deserves someone to stand up and say, 'This child exists, she matters, and no one gets to keep her hidden anymore.'" Nari stared at her. For the first time since she had walked out of that glass office, the careful composure slipped, just slightly, just enough. Her eyes grew bright, and she blinked once, deliberately, and pressed her lips together hard. "Why would you do that?" she asked. "He is your husband." "He is also her father," Emily said simply. "And those two things are going to have to exist at the same time now, whether he is ready for it or not." The room held the silence for a long beat. Then Nari unfolded her hands slowly, placed them flat on the desk, and looked at Emily the way you look at something unexpected that you are not yet sure whether to trust. "There is something you need to know," Nari said. Her voice had shifted, lower now, quieter, stripped of the last of the management. Emily waited. "The payment stopped." Nari held her gaze. 3 weeks ago. No warning, no explanation, just nothing. After 6 years of every single month without fail, they stopped. Emily felt something cold move through her chest. 3 weeks ago, she repeated slowly. Yes. 3 weeks ago was 2 weeks before the farmer's market, which meant Kai had cut off Nari's payments, and then 2 weeks later Emily's son had looked across a cobblestone path and seen his sister's face for the first time. That was not a coincidence. That was a man who had felt something shifting and had started making moves before anyone else knew the board had changed. Emily looked at Adaeze. Adaeze looked back at her with the same expression, steady, alert, recalculating. "Did he give you any reason at all?" Emily asked. Nari shook her head. "He never responded to my messages. I called twice. Nothing." She paused. "But the week before the payment stopped, I saw something. On his business Instagram. A property listing. A new apartment. In another city." The cold in Emily's chest deepened. "Which city?" she asked. Nari told her. And Emily understood then, with perfect, terrible clarity, that she had not been the one investigating Kai these past 4 days. Kai had been preparing to disappear. The drive back was nothing like the drive there. On the way to Nari's studio, Emily had been composed, measured, a woman with a plan moving toward its execution. On the way back, she sat in the passenger seat with her hands folded in her lap, and her eyes fixed on the road ahead, and said absolutely nothing for 11 full minutes. Adaeze let her have it. That was the thing about Adaeze. She understood the difference between silence that needed to be filled and silence that needed to be respected. She drove without music, without commentary, without the nervous filler conversation that most people reached for when the air got heavy. It was Emily who spoke first. "He was going to run," she said. Not a question, not disbelief, just the flat, precise articulation of a fact she was still arranging inside herself. "That's what it looks like," Adaeze said carefully. "He stopped the payments, found an apartment, was waiting for the right moment." Emily's voice was steady, but her jaw was tight. "And then Everest saw Mia at the market, and the whole thing started unraveling before he could get out cleanly." Adaeze said nothing. She didn't need to. Emily turned to look out the passenger window at the city moving past. Buildings, people, ordinary Tuesday morning life. She thought about Kai at the dinner table the night she had found the photograph. Relaxed, warm, cutting Everest's chicken into smaller pieces, asking about the tomatoes she had forgotten to buy. The specific performance of a man who had already made a decision and was simply waiting for the logistics to align. He had not been managing a secret. He had been managing an exit. The question, Emily said quietly, is what he was running from. Us, Nari, both? She paused. Or something else entirely. Adaeze glanced at her briefly. You think there's more? I think a man who maintained a parallel life for 7 years and then suddenly started dismantling it 3 weeks ago did not do that without a reason. Emily turned back from the window. Something happened. Something that made him decide it was time to go. The car was quiet for a moment. What do you want to do? Adaeze asked. Emily looked straight ahead. I want to go home. I want to sit across from my husband at dinner tonight, and I want to watch his face while he has absolutely no idea what I know. She paused. And then tomorrow, I want to find out what spooked him. Kai was already home when Emily got back. That was the first thing that was wrong. It was barely past noon on a Tuesday. Kai never came home before 6 on weekdays. His car was in the driveway, his jacket was over the back of the hallway chair, and the sound of him moving around upstairs filtered down through the ceiling with a purposefulness that was different from his usual weekend ease. Emily set her bag down on the hallway table very carefully. She stood still for a moment and listened. Drawers opening, closing, the wardrobe, the zip of something, a bag, a suitcase. She moved to the bottom of the stairs and looked up. Kai? The sound stopped immediately, a beat of complete silence. Then his footsteps crossed the bedroom floor, and he appeared at the top of the stairs. He was still in his work clothes, but his shirt was untucked, and his expression, when he saw her, did something complicated and fast that he smoothed over almost immediately with a smile. Almost. Hey. His voice was easy, practiced. You're back. I'm back, Emily said. She looked up at him from the bottom of the stairs with the same calm she had been wearing for a week. "What are you doing home?" "Came to pick something up." He leaned against the banister with the relaxed posture of a man who had nothing to hide. "Meeting got moved to tomorrow." Emily nodded slowly. "What were you looking for?" "Just some documents." He held her gaze. "For the Anderson account?" Emily looked at him for a long moment. The Anderson account. She filed that away quietly, the way she had been filing everything for the past week, carefully, precisely, without letting any of it show on her face. "Okay," she said. I'll start lunch." She turned and walked to the kitchen. She stood at the counter and filled a glass of water and drank it slowly while she listened to him move around upstairs for another 4 minutes. Then his footsteps came down the stairs. He appeared in the kitchen doorway with a slim leather folder tucked under his arm, thin enough that it could have held documents, though Emily noticed it was the exact width of a passport. "I'll be back by 7, he said. "I'll have dinner ready," she said. He kissed her cheek. She turned her face up for it the way she always did. His aftershave was the same one he had worn since the year they met. She had always loved it. She didn't move until she heard the front door close. Then she set the glass down and walked upstairs. The wardrobe was exactly as she had left it that morning. Neat. Ordered. Nothing visibly disturbed. But Emily had spent 7 years keeping this wardrobe, and she knew every inch of it the way you know the geography of the spaces you tend. She moved through it slowly, methodically, checking things in the specific order she kept them. The wooden box was still there, the photograph was still inside it. But on Kai's side of the wardrobe, pushed to the very back behind his winter coats, she found something she had not put there and had not seen before. A bag, not a suitcase, smaller than that. A soft-sided overnight bag, already packed, already zipped. She crouched and unzipped it carefully. Inside, folded clothes, a wash bag, a phone charger, and at the very bottom, beneath everything else, a manila envelope, unsealed. She opened it. Inside was a single printed document. She unfolded it. It was a lease agreement, a furnished apartment. Another city, exactly as Nari had said. 12 months. Start date, 2 weeks from today. Emily read through it twice. Slowly. Then she folded it back the way she had found it, placed it back in the envelope, replaced everything in the bag in exactly the order she had found it, re-zipped it and pushed it back behind the winter coats. She stood up, straightened her clothes, breathed. Kai was not having a second crisis of conscience. Kai was not trying to figure out how to come clean. Kai was not the man she had spent this week quietly hoping might still have one honest thing left in him. Kai had a start date. She walked back downstairs to the kitchen and stood at the counter and looked at her hands for a long time. The anger was there. It had always been there, banked and controlled, burning low and steady beneath the calm she had been wearing like armor for a week. But this was different. This was not the anger of a woman who had been betrayed. This was something quieter and more dangerous than that. This was the anger of a woman who had just realized that the person she was dealing with was not confused or guilty or torn. He was calculating, which meant she needed to be more calculating still. She picked up her phone and opened her contacts. She scrolled past Adaz, past her sister, past her lawyer, a name she had added 3 days ago and not yet called. She stopped on the lawyer. She pressed call. It rang twice. "Good afternoon. This is Patricia Owens." "Good afternoon," Emily said. Her voice was completely level, completely composed. The voice of a woman who had made a decision and was ready to move. "My name is Emily. I need to speak with you about my husband. I believe he is preparing to leave the country. And I need to make sure that before he does, his daughter is legally recognized and his assets are fully accounted for." A brief pause on the other end. Can you come in tomorrow morning? Patricia asked. I'll be there at 9. Emily said. She ended the call, set the phone down on the counter, and stood in the kitchen of the home she had built with a man who had packed a bag and signed a lease and set a date. She thought about Mia, the wicker basket, the wide, quiet eyes, the face that looked like Everest's. She thought about Everest upstairs, still at school, completely unbothered, completely unaware. She was going to burn every exit Kai had built. Not for herself, not even entirely for Mia, for the 2 children who had found each other at a flower stall and deserved to know why. Patricia Owens worked out of a clean, quietly expensive office on the 9th floor of a building that smelled like mahogany and consequence. She was a small woman, mid-50s, with close-cropped natural hair and the particular stillness of someone who had spent 30 years sitting across from people in crisis and had learned that the most powerful thing you could offer them was an absence of panic. She listened to everything Emily said without interrupting once. When Emily finished, Patricia set her pen down, folded her hands on the desk, and looked at her directly. "Let me make sure I understand the full picture," she said. "Your husband has a daughter from a relationship that was ongoing at the time of your marriage. The child is approximately the same age as your son. He has been making monthly payments to the mother for 6 years from a joint account. Those payments stopped 3 weeks ago. You have found a packed bag and a signed lease agreement for an apartment in another city with a start date of 2 weeks from today." "Yes," Emily said. "And he does not know that you know any of this." "Correct." Patricia was quiet for a moment. Not the silence of someone who was surprised. The silence of someone organizing priorities. "The first thing we need to do," she said, "is freeze the joint assets before he moves anything." She picked her pen back up. "Has there been any unusual activity in the joint account beyond the monthly payments to the mother?" Emily opened her phone and placed it on the desk facing Patricia. She had been tracking the account for 5 days. 3 withdrawals in the past 2 weeks, larger than usual, cash, no receipts, no corresponding transactions anywhere she could find. Patricia looked at the screen for a long moment. Then she looked up. "He's been liquidating," she said simply. Emily had suspected it. Hearing it said aloud in this clean, quiet office by a woman who had seen it before was different from suspecting it alone in a dark kitchen at midnight. It landed with a finality that she felt in her sternum. "How quickly can we move?" Emily asked. "Faster than he can," Patricia said. "That I can promise you." She did not tell Kai about the lawyer. She did not tell him about Nari, about the packed bag she had found and replaced so precisely he would never know she had touched it, about the lease agreement she had photographed on her phone before folding it back, about Patricia Owens and the asset freeze that was already being prepared. She came home that evening and made dinner. Jollof rice and grilled chicken because it was Everest's favorite, and because she needed the specific comfort of doing something ordinary and loving with her hands, while her mind worked through everything at a level below speech. Kai came home at 7, as he had said he would. He was relaxed. He helped Everest with his reading homework at the kitchen table while Emily finished cooking, his voice patient and warm, leaning over the boy's shoulder and pointing at words with his finger. The picture of a present father, a good husband. Emily watched him from across the kitchen and felt something she hadn't expected. Not hatred, not the cold, focused anger that had been driving her all week. Something sadder than that. The specific grief of looking at someone you loved and realizing you were looking at a performance. That somewhere underneath the warmth and the patience and the aftershave and the 7 years of Saturday mornings was a man who had packed a bag and signed a lease and set a date to leave his son. She set the food on the table and sat down, and they ate together like a family. After dinner, Kai put Everest to bed. Emily stood at the kitchen sink, washing dishes, and listened to his voice drifting down from upstairs. A story, then quiet, then his footsteps on the stairs. He came into the kitchen and stood beside her, and picked up a dish towel and dried without being asked, the way he had always done. She handed him plates, and he dried them, and they stood at the sink together, in the specific silence of a marriage. And Emily thought, this is what he is throwing away, this exact thing, this quiet. Kai, she said. Hmm? She handed him another plate. Are you happy? He looked at her. A pause. Small, fast, managed. Of course, he said. Why? She looked back at the sink. Just asking. He dried the plate, set it down. Are you? I'm working on it, she said. He didn't ask what she meant. She noticed that too. She had not planned on what happened next. She had planned to let the lawyer work, to let the asset freeze happen quietly, to let Kai reach his start date and find every door locked and every exit sealed before she sat across from him and told him she knew everything. That was the plan. Clean, controlled, executed with the same precision she had applied to every step of the past week. But at 11:47 that night, her phone lit up on the nightstand. Not a call, a message, from a number she didn't recognize. She picked it up carefully in the dark, Kai's breathing slow and even beside her, and read it. You don't know everything yet. There is something about your husband you need to see before you make your next move. Meet me tomorrow, alone. I will send the location in the morning. Do not tell Nari. Emily stared at the message for a long time. She looked at the sender's number. Unknown. No name. No context. Nothing. She read it again. You don't know everything yet. Her mind moved through the possibilities quickly and precisely. Nari, but the message said, do not tell Nari, which meant it was not Nari. Someone connected to Kai, a colleague, a business partner, someone on the inside of whatever he had been building in the shadows. Or someone else entirely. Someone she had not yet accounted for. A piece of the story that had not yet shown its face. She set the phone face down on the nightstand. She lay in the dark beside her husband and stared at the ceiling and breathed. She had spent a week believing she was the one doing the investigating. She had spent a week carefully, methodically building a case. The photograph, the payments, the laptop, the Instagram account, the studio, the packed bag, the lawyer. She had been so focused on what she was uncovering that she had not stopped to ask a different question entirely. What if someone had wanted her to find it? What if the farmer's market had not been an accident? What if Mia being there that Saturday, at that specific stall, at that specific time, with that specific basket of wildflowers, had not been a coincidence at all? Emily closed her eyes. She thought about Nari, about the sharpness of her, the way her eyes had found Emily's across the cobblestone path too fast, too steady. The way she had looked at Emily at the market, not with surprise, but with recognition. The way she had sat in that office and answered every question with the careful precision of a woman who had rehearsed those answers. Who had known at some level that the conversation was coming. You don't know everything yet. Emily opened her eyes. Outside the bedroom window, the city hummed its quiet nighttime hum, indifferent and continuous, the way cities always are when someone's world is quietly splitting open inside one of 1,000 lit windows. She reached for her phone again, read the message one more time. Then she did something she had not done in a week of careful, controlled, solitary investigation. She typed back, "Send me the location." She set the phone down, pulled the covers up, closed her eyes. Kai slept soundly beside her, completely unaware, and somewhere across the city, in a modest apartment with a child asleep in the next room, Nari sat at her kitchen table in the dark, and looked at her own phone and waited. You just watched Emily build the perfect case. But someone else has been building one too. Part 2 is coming. And the person who sent that message is going to change everything you think you know about this story. Subscribe to AfroKorean Saga right now, because Part 2 opens with that meeting, and nothing will be the same after it.